Imagine waking up in a small, dark attic room. 6 or 7 people are packed around you. The window barely opens, and the air smells of coal smoke and damp brick walls. This isn't a nightmare. It's everyday life for millions of people in the 1880s America. And here's a shocking fact. 1 in every 10 children born in New York during this era never made it to their 5th birthday. Today, we're taking a journey back in time. You'll step into a world where survival was never guaranteed, where the American dream was forged in poverty, disease, and hard labor. But here's the twist. You carry all your 21st century knowledge with you, while living with 19th century limitations. So the real question is, with everything you know now about health, business, and community, would you simply survive, or could you truly make a difference? Let's find out. 1. Daily survival in 1880s. America, more than just work and food. Your first morning in New York, 1883. No alarm clock, just the factory whistle shrieking at 5 a.m. Everyone rushes to splash their faces in a shared water basin. What they don't know, that water has likely mixed with sewage from the street, and yet they drink it. At the time, most people believed disease came from bad air. They burned incense, they hung herbs by the window, they even stuffed rags under doors. But germs? Bacteria? That was crazy science to them. You, however, know the truth. You boil water. You cover food. You wash your hands before eating. Neighbors may laugh. You're wasting time and coal. But you're quietly protecting yourself from cholera, typhoid, and dysentery. And food? A working-class diet was painfully bland. Bread, potatoes, a bit of salted meat. Many children developed rickets from vitamin deficiencies. That's where your modern mindset kicks in. Maybe you strike a deal with a pushcart vendor to trade laundry service for fresh apples and cabbage. Maybe you start a small rooftop garden. Nothing fancy, but enough to add greens to your family's diet. What you know is common sense today. Boiling water, eating vegetables, was revolutionary then. In fact, doctors often warned against too much fresh fruit, believing it upset the stomach. You'd look like an oddball, until the day everyone else got sick and you didn't. Lesson? Survival isn't just endurance, it's adaptation. The smallest daily choices could be the difference between life and death. So once you've managed to stay healthy, the next battle begins. How do you actually earn enough to survive in a city where even children are sent to the factories? 2. Turning struggle into opportunity. Jobs, money, and community factories were the default. 12-hour shifts, 6 days a week, $1.50 a day. You'd come home exhausted, with cotton dust in your lungs or burns on your arms. But here's where your modern brain sees something different. Unmet demand. Families too tired to cook? You could sell ready-made meals. No electricity? Candles and kerosene lamps were always in demand. Overwhelmed mothers with too many kids? Laundry and childcare services were lifelines. Jacob Riis documented in How the Other Half Lives how some immigrants escaped the factory system by starting tiny street businesses, food stalls, shoemaking, tailoring. These weren't glamorous, but they gave families control over their time. In the 1880s, the gig economy already existed. It just looked like peddlers with pushcarts and seamstresses with sewing machines. And you, with modern efficiency and customer service, could outpace them. Common mistake. Back then, many families put every working member, even children, into the factory system. Short-term gain, long-term misery. Families that diversified, having one member run a side hustle while others worked, often fared better. And there's another advantage you have: networking. Immigrants stuck to their ethnic enclaves, Irish with Irish, Italians with Italians. But you know that collaboration across cultures creates opportunity. Imagine an Irish laborer, a German carpenter, and an Italian cook pooling resources to open a tavern. That's more powerful than any one family alone. Lesson? Opportunity isn't always in the obvious path. It's in the overlooked needs of people and in building networks that others ignore. But even if you build a small business, it won't matter if disease knocks you, or your customers, out of the game. And in the 1880s, illness was the deadliest competitor of all. 3. Playing the long game. Health, innovation, and legacy diseases killed more Americans than workplace accidents ever did. Tuberculosis alone claimed 1 in 7 lives. Typhoid and yellow fever swept through crowded cities. Doctors prescribed opium syrup, arsenic pills, or mercury tonics. But fresh air, sunlight, and nutrition actually work. You open windows for ventilation. You convince families to spend time outdoors, even if it means standing on a crowded fire escape. Real example, Dr. Edward Trudeau, in 1884, discovered that TB patients in the Adirondack Mountains improved dramatically with fresh air. His findings took decades to spread, but you could accelerate that knowledge. In the 1880s, America promoting hygiene could be seen as strange or even superstitious. Washing hands before meals? Doctors themselves rarely did it. You'd be pushing against the culture, not just the disease. But beyond survival, you see the bigger picture. America is transforming. Railroads crisscross the country. Steel and oil are exploding industries. Electricity is creeping into homes. While most workers focus only on today's wages, you know where the future is headed. Maybe you buy land near a new railroad line, knowing it will skyrocket in value. Maybe you invest in steel, or simply offer services that feed the industrial machine. Moral dilemma? Do you exploit this foresight to get rich alone, or do you share it, creating a cooperative credit union so your neighbors can invest too? And then there's education. The most successful families weren't necessarily the richest. They were the ones who kept their kids in school. Andrew Carnegie went from factory boy to steel tycoon, and his greatest legacy wasn't money. It was libraries that educated millions. Lesson: real survival isn't about tonight's meal or tomorrow's paycheck. It's about planting seeds, health, education, community that will bear fruit 10, 20 years later. Which leaves us with the ultimate question. If you had this chance, what kind of legacy would you leave behind in the 1880s America? Walking through a single day in 1880s, America shows us something powerful. People didn't just survive on food or wages. They survived on hope. In cramped tenements, families gathered around a single candle, telling stories, singing songs, and passing on the belief in a better tomorrow. That hope was their greatest act of resistance against a system stacked against them. And that's the real lesson for us today. Resilience isn't just enduring hardship. It's keeping your humanity, your kindness, and your connections to others, especially when life is at its hardest. So, if you woke up tomorrow in 1883, what would you do with your 21st century knowledge? Would you scrape by? Or become the one who plants hope for generations to come? Drop your survival strategy in the comments. I read every one, and I may feature your ideas in a future episode. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell. Because next week, we're heading to another turning point in history. And trust me, it's one you don't want to miss.